Hi, everybody. Matt here from Matt Likes Comics. And today I've got a bit of a special thing going on. I've brought a guest on. It's Nate from Comics. Say hello.
Hello. It's great to be here, Matt. Thanks for inviting me on.
No problem. Just a quick, I want to make a couple shout outs. I want to shout out to Boston Chris Comics. I watched some of his videos on the weekend, and this guy really knows what he's talking about. So if you've got some time, give him a check out. Also, I want to, I understand a lot of comics aren't their exclusive hobby. A lot of them game, and a lot of those games are miniature games. I want you to check out a channel of a good friend of mine. He's the godfather to my daughter. His name is Robert at Easterlings Miniatures Gaming. He does a lot of miniature painting and gives a lot of tips, and he's pretty good. He's got a couple thousand followers. Give him a quick look. His videos are pretty quick and short, but they're pretty detailed. Anyways, one more announcement to make with regarding to Matt Likes Comics. We are going to have a 222 subscriber giveaway. And if you're all wondering why that number seems weird, it's because it is the number of issues that the topic of conversation we are going to have today ran. And therefore, the number that I'm going to use to give the giveaway. We're at 70 now as of the time of this recording. Let's see if we can get there. And once we get closer, I'll show what we've got, and we'll make the video with the instructions. So, without further ado, hi Nate. Why don't you tell the people out there a little bit about yourself and your channel?
My channel is called Comics. I just started about I don't know, maybe a month and a half, 2 months ago. It's just something that I kind of always wanted to do, and it's been a ton of fun. I try to have fun when I show off some books. I talk about books that I like, and I have been really lucky in that I've just met a lot of really cool people, and I consider you among those, who have just been really welcoming. And I've been invited on to do these kind of things, these little hangouts, and show off books and just talk with somebody else who enjoys the hobby like I do. So yeah, I'm primarily a DC collector, but there are a lot of Marvel that I enjoy as well. But I mean, if everybody wants to pick a side. If I got to pick a side, I'm picking DC all the way right now.
Yeah, which is usually where I'll end up as well, because
yeah. But I think even our Marvel, we have some overlap. You're a Defenders collector too, right?
I do. I like the Defenders very much, actually. One of the big reasons is because Son of Satan is a non-member, because this is the team of non-heroes, right? So
yes. And I don't know, there's just a DC-esque quality about the Defenders, the way they're kind of all, like you said, Son of Satan. They're just kind of all C-listers, Nighthawk and those guys. Yeah. And they work together.
Walker, one of the comic book geek favorite characters.
Who's that?
Patsy Walker. She becomes the Hellcat.
Yes, I love Patsy Walker, and she has a good run in there.
Got the issue here, I haven't quite read it yet, but I've got the issue where the two of them get married. That's New Defenders 125. And
who's that? Son of Satan and
Son of Satan marries the cat.
Yep, I have it. I read it not too long ago.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's a great. I read it years ago. I vaguely remember it. No, these kind of hangouts, I'd like them to remind people of the times when they're kids, they were kids or teenagers, hanging out in their friends' bedrooms and passing around the comic books and all giving a read. I remember a lot of time spent doing that when I was younger. You didn't have money to do anything else. You weren't old enough to do anything else. This was a great way to pass the evening.
Man, that's a really good point. This is you just hit my nostalgia button there.
Yeah. So what we're going to look at tonight is, both of us are big collectors of the ancillary characters, the Superman family, basically. Specifically today, we're going to look at books from the Jimmy Olsen series and the Lois. Sorry, hang on. And ever since Jack Larson played Jimmy Olsen on the Superman Adventures of Superman TV show, Jimmy Olsen became a very popular character from the TV show. And so DC Comics in 1955 decided, let's try a Jimmy Olsen comic book. At the time, Superman was their bestseller. And so that's what they went with. And Jimmy was a success for a long time. And so they continued with Lois Lane, and Supergirl came along. Lois Lane came along in 58, and Supergirl came along in 59, but she was relegated at first to the backup at Action Comics for 10 years. So let us begin. I'm going to start off by showing up a couple of Jimmy Olsens, if you don't mind. I'm just going to make myself big. This is Jimmy Olsen 55. This is the oldest Jimmy I've got. And the cover features Jimmy Olsen knocking out Superman. There's a lot of this type of covers for this period of Jimmy Olsen. This is a Kurt Swan cover, and it is the only 10-cent Jimmy I own. And I'm going to follow that with the Fantasy Army of General Olsen. This is Jimmy Olsen number 60. And here he's leading a army of what looks like to be alien beings. And Superman is in the background thinking things about him leading it into a suicide charge. And hijinks go. Hijinks keep going. Here we've got Jimmy Olsen 63. Apparently he has this, on the cover, he's got this ring of some sort that changes the Kandorian people as they come out into different freaky types of super people. You got one here with a lion's head. You've got a bald guy, and you've got an old man. And I note that most of them are all taken from cover swipes from other Superman covers at the time. Okay, I'm going to make you big, and it's you, and allow you to go ahead.
All right, I don't have any 10 centers, but I'll show off a couple here. So my oldest issue is number 73. Sorry, back up a little there. And that's where Jimmy gets the golden touch. I like Perry's cigar is gold, and he gives a great Caesar's ghost, which I always like to see. And that he's also turning Superman's cape into gold. So that's a pretty cool one, 12 center. I think this one's this one's not in the best shape, but I like having a reader anyway. This one I am going to talk more about because this one is a wild read. So this is Jimmy's like a secret agent, and they call him like 0.005 or something instead of 007.
Probably during the famous when James Bond was starting out and was really popular.
And so I'm trying to think what I don't remember what the first story was, but it was really good too. But the spy story as well was like double size. And Jimmy just does all this ridiculous spy stuff for no reason, and he's terrible at it. Like he keeps getting tricked by everybody. So 0.005 really is a good number for him because with his skill level, it seems.
And I particularly like the fire that's coming out of his suit.
And there's if you notice on the bottom, he's clicking his feet together. That's how he activates it. And he tells Superman when he's coming down, he's like, watch how this happens. And he just shoots fire at him for no reason. And it's a pretty funny moment. He has all these gadgets, but he really doesn't have any reason to use them. So they just have him use them, even though he doesn't have a reason.
It's just between friends. It's a little fire, right?
Yeah. The last one I have, I showed off on my channel too, and this one was okay. The backup story wasn't very good. It had to do with Jimmy and a prince switching places or something. But in this one,
what number is that? I may have it.
This is number 97.
92? No, I don't. But it was reprinted because I've read the story not too long ago.
Okay, so in this one, Jimmy wakes that villain up, and he has to use all the weapons that he can find in the fortress to defeat because Superman's gone. Superman leaves him alone in the fortress. He knocks something over and brings this guy out, and he has to fight him. It was actually a pretty fun issue. And this one is October 1966, and it has the Batman the movie poster in it. And I noticed that a lot of I've gotten a couple more since then from October 66, and they also have that Batman poster, which I think is really cool.
I love the fact that I love the Go-Go Check area. It's probably my favorite era of
Yes, I
Yeah.
agree. With the checkerboard motif is like when I see one of those, I know I'm going to get a good book.
Hmm. Okay, I'm going to go back to myself now
Okay.
because here we've got. Well, speaking of Agent Double Five, here we've got a Jimmy Olsen where he is Agent 005 again, and he's fighting against Batman and Superman because apparently they've become bad and they go for SCAR or Scar, the bad guys that he fights.
That is awesome. I love
Yeah.
that they continue that.
Yep. And here we have a very nice one. This is Jimmy Olsen 72. And in this issue, based on the cover, I remember the story quite well. This is the issue that Jimmy is initiated and becomes a reserve member, an honorary member of the Legion. And all of the Jimmy Olsens there are disguised Legionnaires. And in one case, the pet Proddy. And this is one of my favorite Jimmy Olsen stories of all time because as a Legion fan, I've also a big thing. I actually have that story is actually reprinted in one of these digests I have up here for Adventure Comics 500.
Okay, I think I've read that one before.
Yeah. And another one here, this is Jimmy Olsen 101. This is a hilarious one because somehow Jimmy goes back to Krypton before it blows up. And see, he's holding little Kal-El, and there's little Crypto on the cover. But what cracks me up the most about this book, it's not the story, it's the fact that Jimmy is deciding to impress the girl by cooking hamburgers and fries, and all I could think of is where did he get ground beef and potatoes?
Right.
It's Krypton.
That's funny.
And that, you know what? That is the kind of Silver Age silliness that I really, really, really have liked over the years. And the next Jimmy I'm going to show is another one that was a favorite of mine for years. This was in my dad's original pile back when I was 5-6 years old, and I've read it many times. Jimmy Olsen inherits $1 million. However, the caveat is that in order to inherit the million, he has to spend $1 million in 24 hours. And the caveat is he's not allowed to spend more than $50,000 on one item. Now we're talking, this is a 1967 book. And so we're talking about 1967 prices. So you can imagine how hard it would be to spend $1 million having that as a rule against you.
Yeah, no
And
doubt.
Jimmy ends up not doing it by a measly dime.
That's funny.
And well, yeah. And the irony is, if he'd thrown he gets a ticket, he gets a parking ticket because he forgot to throw that last dime into the parking meter.
Of course, womp womp.
Yes. And that's one of the reasons I like it so much. It has that, what a twist at the end.
Yeah, it sounds exactly like the plot to Brewster's Millions, that Richard Pryor movie where he was going to inherit all this. That was the plot. He was going to inherit all this money, but to inherit the money, he had to spend like an equal amount and waste it before he could get the inheritance.
That's hilarious. I'm going to have to put that on my watch list then.
It's a good 80s movie. Check it out.
Oh, I like 80s movies.
I do too.
Especially the sci-fi horror type. All right. I will. It's your turn, my friend.
All right. I'm just gonna show two because I want to save two for the last one because they kind of go together. So this one goes with one you showed, the Legion one. This is Jimmy in all his different forms.
Right.
And one of the things that I collect specifically because of Silver Age is I like covers that have body transformations on them, and Silver Age DC does that all the time. So like the one you showed where he's got the Kandorians and he's turning them into the different, like the big head and the old man and that's one I need to track down, not just because it's Jimmy, but because it fits that part. So I loved this one because it has all the different Jimmy transformations in it.
Yes, I particularly like the. I am a big fan of the Porcupine Jimmy. And,
I am too. I also like Turtle Boy, and I don't have any Turtle Boy, not first printing or anything.
No, Turtle Boy. Okay, Turtle Boy is one of the earlier books. That is why it's expensive as a result.
Yeah.
I think it's one of his first big transformations because I know it was certainly reprinted in the first Jimmy Olsen 80-page giant. So
I think it's one I'll probably try to track down because it's just one of those characters that I
yeah.
love and I want to have in the collection. The next one, I jump up pretty high, so I'm at 123 here for it's a
Mhm.
15 center, but this is like that where Superman's a jerk. You know, there were all these covers during this time period, so
Yes, the
Jimmy has
Superman
to
era.
yeah, so Jimmy has to serve out his father's sentence, and his dad is begging Superman to get him out of it, and Superman's like, "I'm sorry, he said he'd take your punishment, so you've got to let him do it."
Yeah.
Um, so, stories like this, covers like this, they jump out at me, and when the price is right, I totally wanna get these and read them.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna stop there because the next two go together, and so I'll hold them for the next round.
Okay, well, I'm going to do two more Jimmy, and then you do two more Jimmy, and then we'll.
Okay.
Yeah, see, I had two of the ones you showed, and including the gold, the one where he touched the gold. So
Oh, cool.
you know, all right, let's take a change here. Okay, the two I'm going to show. This one here, it fits in the Superman as an asshole category, where he's holding water.
Ah,
This is Jimmy Olsen 115.
that is a great I love that cover.
Okay, I also got it signed by Neil Adams, as you
That's
can
amazing.
see right there.
Nicely
One of
done.
those. This is one of the first books I ever had Neil sign over the years, and it's just so funny because it's like, make a choice, drink or Aquaman. Why are they in the desert in the first place? I don't know,
Exactly.
but what a freaking dick.
Yeah.
like like it's just so funny how like in that era they did all these things to Superman to make him look like he was just the world's worst person, and yet and it's worse than Lois Lane. I find this is
Oh,
supposed to
yeah.
be his best bud. You can understand a couple of practical jokes between friends. So the next one I'm going to show, unfortunately, I don't have the Dark Side issue of 134 or 135, which are the first and third appearances of Darkseid. His second is in the New Gods 5, I want to say. I'm not sure, 100% sure
I'm
what else.
honestly not sure.
Yeah, but I know 134 is very expensive because it's the first cameo of Darkseid. So
Right.
if you want to collect a Jimmy Olsen run, be prepared. That's actually not the most expensive book of the run. 1, 2, and I think the Turtle issue are worth more, but it's up there. But this here is the last issue of Jimmy Olsen before cancellation and turning into Superman Family. This is issue 163. It's
Okay.
1974, and there is absolutely no clue. You don't know that they're decided to make the change until you read the letters page, and it's literally at the bottom. Oh yeah, this is the last issue of Jimmy Olsen. We're doing this
Wow.
now. So on here, he is trapped inside some sort of crystal with some Hun from again. It is a Hun. It's from the era of Attila there, and Superman's looking for Jimmy. And he can't find him because before it got in, he managed to get the signal watch off for a bit, and then it stopped. It just stopped. So Superman got really worried and rushed over. And I think that this is I want to say it was a Kirby cover, but except for the head, because Kirby was doing Jimmy Olsen at the time. But
Wow.
he may have been off the book by then, because Jack Kirby did most of Jimmy Olsen. He did the issue of Darkseid, for example,
Yes.
for a good chunk of that. I don't have much of the Kirby era. It is I don't want to say artificially inflated. It is inflated because it's Kirby art. So this one may not be Kirby because it didn't cost me that much, and it's in pretty decent shape.
That's really cool.
Yeah. All right, let's go over to you, and let's see your last two that go together.
Well, they go together and they go with what you just said. So the next two that I've got are Kirby era. So the first one is one of the weirdest ones. It
Yes,
is
that is a great one. Don Rickles.
Jimmy Olsen number 141. Not only is it like it's just so weird, and it's not good. Like I read it and it's not good. I had trouble like even figuring out what they were really trying to do. I think, I mean, the history of this that I was able to find out was that Jack Kirby liked Don Rickles and thought, and Don Rickles had a TV show, so he thought this would be like a cross promotion. I'll put Don Rickles in the comic, and Don Rickles will talk about the comic, and then we'll mutually make some money. And Don Rickles didn't like it. Don Rickles didn't like the way he was drawn in the comic, and he is drawn weird. And he's also like, he's not just himself. There's another character named Goody Rickles that works in the newsroom somewhere, and he wears a superhero costume, and it was hard to follow, and it just wasn't very good. So like this was part 2 of that story, and I don't remember if it was you. Somebody told me that the reason part 1 is in not the previous issue, but 2 previous, 2 prior, was because
Yes, there was
140. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, 140 was a reprint issue.
Okay. And so I wanted to read the first part of this to see if it helped it make any more sense. And I got it at a con at a really, this is in really bad condition. But it's a reader copy and I'm fine with that. And so this one also has like, they both have weird pictures of Don Rickles on them. And the first one does not help. The first one does not help the story at all. Like I didn't understand it any better. It was still just, I mean, the best thing that these have going for them is that they both have Kirby art. So I now have the complete set, and I can't say that it's that great, but I am really glad to have it just because it's so weird.
Well, Kirby brought the Guardian back in Jimmy Olsen books at the time because he worked on the Guardian with Joe Simon back in the 40s.
Right.
I think they created him. So he wanted to, since DC owned the rights to the Guardian, he wanted to work on him again. So he brought him back as a clone in this series. And that made so a lot of these characters make their appearances again in the new Superman post-crisis series, including the Newsboy Legion and who were with the Guardian, and Dublex, who was in the books at the time. That's the DNA alien, the one that can read minds. I don't know if you've seen him in those books. Those books may predate his first appearance. I can't remember exactly what it is, but there was this whole thing that Kirby did, and unfortunately, because Kirby did a lot of this stuff and it wasn't popular when it came out, it was the finishing touch for the Jimmy Olsen book, which was too bad. And that was the sales. At one point, Jimmy Olsen was the 4th best-selling book at DC after Action, Adventure, and Superman. And then it fell big time.
I mean, that's crazy to me. That is a crazy factoid. I never would have thought that it was a top seller like that.
Yeah, no, it was, again, Jack Larson playing Jimmy Olsen was so popular. Like he was, I mean, the 50s being the 50s, obviously Lois Lane couldn't be seen having with Clark Kent having breakfast together. So they used the Jimmy character to sit with Clark Kent to have those bowls of Kellogg's for the sponsors of Superman. And the thing is, Jack he seemed to resonate with the people. And they liked him because he was more the regular Joe that wanted to help Superman, but wasn't powerful enough to help Superman, but he was still his pal. And
yeah, that's really cool.
It was a big deal in the early days of television. You got to remember, there wasn't a lot of TV on then too. So.
Right. I mean, I grew up in the era of what, 3 networks. And where I lived in a rural area, so everything was over an antenna, and I was lucky to get 2.
I lucked out because we had here in like in my part of Canada, then we had the 2 networks from Canada and the 3 networks from the United States from the very close border.
Yeah.
So we managed to have 5 or 6 channels. And then we got cable when I was younger, and cable back then was 13 channels. But
yeah, exactly. It wasn't. I was going to say it wasn't like 20 channels.
It was still enough. Back in the day, I remember here in Ottawa, we used to get the Rochester channels. And if you talk to people my age about Rochester channels, they all go, "Oh, Great House of Guitars!" Like all the really bad commercials that used to be on the stations and such.
Oh,
There's
Yeah,
a there's a dedicated website out there, people, to the Rochester commercials for the 1980s,
yeah, local commercials are
and they were
amazing.
started by Canadians.
Nice.
Yeah. So I'm going to make you big again, and I'm going to let you start our Lois Lane part.
All right. Let's see. I do have somewhere in my collection, but the way that I sort my books is really stupid. So when I buy them, I throw them in a box kind of in the order that I bought them, like clumped together, because I want to usually put them in new bags and boards and then put them into my CLZ app. And I'm so behind on archiving them that I couldn't find some of them. So um, if you've watched my videos, you probably have seen these, but I'm going to start with Lois Lane number 43, where she is a volunteer nurse and she is falling in love with one of her patients. He paints a picture of her. It's really funny. And this has 3 stories in it. All 3 stories were really good. I really enjoyed this one a lot. So this one was, and this one, I think the cover is really good. I think this might be a
Most,
Schaffenberger cover.
yeah, I would say 90% of the Lois Lane covers until 1969 were Kurt Schaffenberger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the colors on this one are just really good. I thought this was a really strong cover. So this one, if you don't have this one in your collection, Matt, I would recommend it, because this one was a lot of fun to read.
Yeah, I don't think I have that one.
And
40,
then
say 40.
40,
Yeah.
Yep, 43.
I don't have it.
And then the other one I got, which I have 2 more after this, but I'll stop after this one, is number 73, which I also showed off on my channel. And this one is one of the weirdest covers I've ever seen, where the dummy and the damsel. So there's an energy
Yeah.
beast that takes over both Lois and Superman. And the way that they trick him is to trap him in this puppet. And it is a bizarre story.
This is one that scared me when I was a kid. My dad had it in that pile, and it was a little freaky. That puppet. I've never liked clowns,
No.
and that puppet looked too much like a clown.
Yeah, it's a weird cover. It's a weird story. And again, like, this one looks really good. The colors on this one are really bright.
It's Jigsaw.
It's
look
what?
Look at the makeup. It's Jigsaw.
Oh yeah, no, you're right. It's got that same, like,
I have to wonder if
rosy cheeks.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. All right, well then I will move over to myself. First one I'll show is my oldest one, is number 32. This one is called Lois Lane's Revenge on Superman. Now this falls into your transformation. Lois gives Superman a serum that turns him into a baby, and she threatens him that if he doesn't help her get scoops, then she won't turn him back. So in this case, this is a little bit of her being a bit of a unhappy person. Here is one called Lois Lane 36, and it's Lana Lang's romance with Superman 2. I have no idea why. I don't remember the story off the top of my head. It's been a while since I read it. But I know that Superman apparently married Lois at some point, and this is Superman's kid. And Lana ends up in the future. That much I know. That's the actual Lana Lang.
Well, she did end up in the future a little bit, right? Like, she went with Superboy to the Legion, and she had a crush on Starboy.
Yeah, and yes, that is true. And it wasn't a real crush. She was trying to get Superboy to be jealous. But Lana eventually, in the Insect Queen, becomes a honorary member of the Legion as well. It's ironic how Jimmy and Lana and Pete, all from the 20th century, all end up honorary members of the Legion, and yet only one of them retains the knowledge and knows that Clark Kent is Superman.
Right.
And like, you'd think that, hanging around the Legion, somebody'd slip up and go, "Yo, Clark." Anyway, this one here is another number 48, is called When Lois Lane Became Cinderella. And basically, she goes back into the past. It's amazing how everybody just had access to time machines and no problem, right?
All the
And
time.
all the time. And of course, Lana is represented as one of the evil stepsisters. And they make the other one because, in the 60s, if you were a large woman, you were evil.
Right.
Because, if you were ugly, you were bad. And if you were good looking, you were good. This one, I don't know if you watch Casually Comics. It's a channel from Canada that has 20,000 followers. She does a lot of Silver Age DC on her channel, and she actually recently did an episode on this book here, Lois Lane, Girlfriend 51, I believe it is. Yep. In this imaginary story, Superman manages to marry all three of them, and all three of Lois, Lana, and Lori, and they all end up dying within like a year of marrying Superman.
Good Lord.
Which leads me to ask the question, how does a mer woman marry a Kryptonian? At least the Earthlings make a little sense.
Right.
And anatomically, of course.
Well, I mean, he can breathe underwater. He can do it.
Oh, that isn't the problem. But anyway, I digress. Next up here, have you got some more Lois Lane's books, or just the one?
Go ahead. I've got two more.
All right.
And
I'll
got
do a couple more, and we'll move on from there. I'm going to skip ahead a little to the 1968. At this point, well, this isn't quite 68, but it's almost there. It's after the Go-Go checks. Lois Lane 78. This is where they start updating her hairstyle and her fashions, so she doesn't look like a 1950s school mom anymore, and she's starting to look like a little bit of a mod. And frankly, I like it. This one, unlike the others, is a Kurt Swan cover.
It's so funny. I love to read the letter columns in both Jimmy and Lois Lane. And one of them that I just read was an earlier issue, but it was talking about how the fans were begging, please change her hairstyle. They hated the way she looked in the 50s.
Yeah. And they didn't want to change it because Kurt Schaffenberger was very comfortable drawing her the way she was. Kurt was an old man. Okay. He'd been in comics since the beginning. And he was older to begin with. He wasn't like everybody else. And the scary part is he made it to the mid 80s, and he was drawing right up to the end. He was drawing the New Adventures of Superboy in the early into mid 1980s.
Yeah, I find stuff with his name on it, and I can't believe that he had that long of a career.
Exactly. No, he started off drawing. I don't know if you saw my Nemesis video, but he did a lot of moonlighting. He did most of the covers that I showed in the Nemesis video under his pseudonym. And he did a lot of work for Fawcett, some of the Bullet Man work and some of the excess work that CC Beck couldn't handle on the Marvel. That's where he gets his style from, because he copied a lot of CC Beck at Fawcett on Captain Marvel. He ended up drawing a lot similar like that, and that's why there's a lot of similarities.
Well, yeah, I did watch your Nemesis video, and that's the first thing that caught my ear was when you mentioned his name. I was like, I know that name. That's the guy that draws Lois Lane.
Yes, that's right. So this is Lois 95. It had an interesting cover where they ran a contest. And what they did was there's like, fill in what Lois and Lana are saying, and we'll give a prize to the winner. They never announced the winner. They never gave the prize away, and it's not because I'm missing any of the books. I looked up online, and every source I say says they never came through. They never followed through.
That sounds about right.
It sounds right for Mort Weisinger. We're talking about the man that, as well as being the Superman editor, wrote a book, 1,000 Things You Could Get for Free. I'm not kidding. That was a bestseller. That was a bestseller.
I
He
bet.
made so much. He used to say he made so much money off selling that book that he could afford to work for free for DC Comics. He obviously didn't, but he also had another interesting job. He was a judge for beauty contests back then.
Oh, what a hard life.
This one here is Lois Lane 108. It is one of my favorite books of all time. It is one where, again, Lois somehow ends up going back in time through magic because Jack the Ripper, who is the ghost on the cover, wants to kill her. He's seen her in the future or whatever through his dirk became magical because it was imbued with his spirit. And it was evil magic and brought her back. And Superman manages to figure out where she was and rescues her in the nick of time.
What a wild story.
Oh, it was great. Yeah, I first read this in a digest years and years and years and years and years ago, back when the Blue Ribbon digests were still out. And when I got back into comics, this was one of the first books I went looking for and found, obviously.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to have it.
I would love to see how they plotted some of these stories out, because I swear it feels like a first draft, like they just
sometimes. Yeah, because they're also, you got to remember, these guys weren't given a lot of time. Weisinger's style was, here's a cover concept. Let's come up with a story around it.
Right. And that's why Silver Age has so many great covers.
Yes, but that was what he did for all 7 of the Superman books. And by 7, I mean Superboy, Superman, Adventure, Action, Superman's Girlfriend Lois Lane, Superman's Pal, and World's Finest. Those were the 7 Superman books of the Silver Age, or as we used to call them, the red and blue 7. Me and my friends, that wasn't a thing. And the last one that I'm going to show right now is yet one that I find interesting, because people will see this and think it's an homage cover to another cover, but it's not, because it came out at least 10 years, probably 12 years before it actually came out. But here's it's a Neil Adams cover. Here is Lois Lane. Okay. But you can see what book I'm talking about.
Oh yeah. Crisis on Infinite Earths, number 7.
And the funny thing is, there's almost the people see this and think it's like, I've had one person see this in my place and think that it was an homage cover. I'm like, dude, it's a 20-cent book. It came out like in the 70s. Like,
right.
This is not an homage. If anything, the other one was stolen from this.
That's a great cover. That's great.
And I mean, Perez was working in comics at the time, but he was at Marvel. So
there's a good chance that, he homaged that.
Yeah, I know. And it wouldn't surprise me, because, I mean, you and I both know, like, you'll just be sitting there and all of a sudden a song will kick in your head. You don't know where it's from, or, you'll remember something. So something might have stirred his memory.
Right.
Because he did tell me in person when I met him that he was into comic books before he became an artist. He was a collector and he liked DC.
Cool, man.
So I'm going to make you big again, and let's see what you got left for us.
All right. You want me to hold off on the last one?
Yes, we'll do the last one together.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so I got 2 that don't. Well, okay, this first one doesn't technically count, but it does. Superman, Whatever Happened to the World of Tomorrow, because we were just talking about Jimmy and Lana, and this is Alan Moore's last Silver Age story, which I had sadly I had never read this. It's excellent.
Yeah, I have the 2 issues
so good.
Superman 423 and Action 583.
Mm-hmm. And I'm gonna get those. It's just too good not to have the originals.
No, I know. I also have it in one of these trades in the back, the Alan Moore one. That is one of the best Superman stories ever written. And I know it's because it's Alan Moore, you think that, but it just ties everything up so well.
And I mean, when you look at the art duties, it's Kurt Swan,
George Perez.
Kurt Swan, George Perez, and Kurt Schaffenberger.
Yeah.
Again, it's the classic
And
guys
that
working on it. Great.
outside of doing the weekly strips in the Action Comics Weekly time, this was the last time Kurt Swan did a regular Superman book.
Oh,
He only worked on Superman specials for DC after this, except for the 42 issues where Action Comics went weekly.
okay.
And he did, and Superman stories in those were only like the centerfold. So,
Excuse me. Okay, I think this is my only 10-cent Superman. But this goes with what you're talking about, marrying
yes,
Lori. So I love this cover. It feels like a Lois Lane cover. And
yeah,
so in this, and it feels like a Lois Lane story that
yeah,
Lois
it does.
the story in that is that like there's this millionaire that they're doing a story on for the newspaper, and he
Yeah,
proposes to Lois, and then for reasons Superman decides that he's going to make her not want to marry him by making her think that he's going to go marry Lori Lamaris and be a merman under the sea. So this was
yeah.
a really fun read, and
And
it
I
connects
noticed that
right to that other
Superman
one.
is. I noticed that Superman is transformed yet once more.
Correct. He is
Yeah,
transformed. It was a body. It was a 10 center. It was a body transformation. And I picked this up at a con. I only paid. It's not in the best shape, but I only paid $10 for it.
yeah, I know.
And
That's the one thing that I think is great about Superman for the most part is anything from about 6.0 down, you can pay dirt cheap prices.
yeah, you really can.
And if as long as you're not looking for the world's best, like on my comic shop, I'm amazed at the amount of money that I can get some of these older actions for. I mean, Action 340 is expensive because it's the first appearance of Parasite, but some of the
Mhm.
issues around it were literally $8 to $10 American.
Yeah.
So
I mean, even I actually was looking at Parasite online,
yeah,
because it's come down so much. Like
yeah,
I saw
I
a
got it
copy.
for a really good price. I got mine for $67 plus
Yeah.
shipping.
I mean, and I saw it, and that's probably a copy in pretty decent shape. I
Well,
saw some.
my comics shop called it a 6.5.
Okay,
And
yeah, that's good.
that my comic shop, sorry, a 5.5, I mean, and my comic shop always undergrades.
Right.
So
Yep. I feel like I saw a VG copy for like $35 on
that
eBay, but
sounds about right.
you know, I, I I wasn't in the market yet. So this one goes with my body transformation and body horror as
I have
well.
that one. I almost showed it.
It's a good one. Lois
Yeah.
Lane 112. I mean, that's one that freaks me out. Superman's face on that one freaks me out. But it reminds me of the Justice League cover where the Justice League
Yeah.
all gets turned into trees. And I just thought this was a really cool one. And I picked this up
That
at the Indiana Comic Con over the summer.
I think that speaking of the Justice League 9, I think that is probably one of the best stories Gardner Fox ever wrote. It
I
was
don't know that
such
I've ever read it.
it's such an ingenious origin. You've got to read it if you can.
Yeah.
It's been reprinted a lot of times. I don't have the book myself, but I have a reprint in a collection. So
Cool. All right. And that's it aside from the last one we've talked about.
and we're going to do the last one together because both of us are in agreement that we think James Gunn should be bringing this guy up.
That's right.
He should be in the movie. Ready?
Ready? I'm
2,
ready.
3.
There he is.
Lois Lane 54, the one and only appearance of Herco.
Oh, Herco. We were
Herco
robbed.
is so great. He is the perfect boyfriend.
Yes. This one, I mean, come on, man. The facial expressions that are on his face when people are trying to get him away from Lois, he's so animated, he's so sad, he's like a Muppet.
Yeah.
It's a really fun story. I really liked this one.
Yes, and it's just one of those little silly. And the thing is, it came out at the time when Marvel was doing all their monster comics, and so monsters were in vogue at the time. The thing is, this guy doesn't look like a monster at all. He
No.
looks like he's going to give you flowers. He'll get you dinner, and then all he wants to do is spoon.
Yeah. He's a good little boy. Look at him.
He just looks so
And
fun.
And
Anyway,
this is one that I kind of did a deeper dive in on my channel.
yes.
I picked some Silver Age books, mostly Lois Lane's, to talk about, and I had a lot of fun taking pictures and talking about this one.
And
And
I will admit that your video on that Lois Lanes inspired me to do this today. So,
oh well, thank you.
which is why
And that was
I brought you on the channel.
oh
This is
well, and that's more, I want to do that more. It's just more involved to take all
yeah.
those pictures and do that editing. But that was a ton of fun. And that was where, like, when I realized that this was Herco's only appearance, that I made up that hashtag bring back Herco to for that anybody who wants to should, like,
Fantastic.
send that to James Gunn every day.
Everybody out there, if you can hashtag bring back Herco on your channel or on your correspondence, we'd love it, because face it, this guy just needs to be in the Superman movie.
Well,
If anything, as a stuffed pet of hers on the bed, even. We just
right.
need some sort of Herco appearance. James Gunn, if you're listening, get on it.
Yeah, I just want I'll take an Easter egg, I'll take a mention, anything. I love the character, and I love that you love it, Matt. I love that you jumped on board
Well,
too.
it's just so funny because I bought this off Alan about 3 weeks before I saw your video. So
Oh, that's funny.
I just got this too. And I thought this was just, like the funniest little story.
Yeah, for me it was well, none of the ones I'm showing here because I couldn't find them, but there was a Whatnot order that I got that just had a ton of Silver Age Jimmies and Lois Lanes, and I picked, I think, 3 or 4 of them to talk about that time. But there were a lot of them, and this one really jumped out at me. I love, there are so many great DC. We talked about the checkerboard, but there's all these yellow covers too.
Yes.
And this
Well,
is one of the really good yellow covers.
the thing is, yellow is the easiest color up till about 1970 or so for the printing. It was the easiest ink to work with. It was it could fade a little bit, and it still wouldn't affect the quality of the product as much. I mean, if you've seen some of the books that some of the people with the Golden Age books show, the orange and the reds really fade fast.
Right.
And the thing is, knowing what the printing coloring processes are, really, if you know it, you could see why a lot of these things were done. In the Silver Age, a lot of covers ended up purple because purple was getting to the point where it was almost as easy as yellow.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it could fade a lot easier. They realized that could fade just as much, because a dark purple versus a lighter purple would still look the same. Red and blue were the ones that you never wanted to fade. And when a book started to fade, it didn't look as good.
Right. And I did notice I think it was one of Alan's video. It was one of Alan's videos. He was showing some Golden Age action, and they were just these bright yellow covers that still looked really good, for something from the early 40s.
Yeah.
So that kind of makes sense what you're saying.
And yes, well, I mean, if you look at on my page, the red and the yellow colors I picked from the Matt Likes Comics logo were based on the yellow were for all the covers that were yellow, and the red was to represent all of the uniforms, including all the red dresses that the girls wear in the Golden Age. So
that's a sharp logo.
Yeah, so those were the colors picked on purpose. Anyway, thank you very much, Nate, for coming out to see us today. For those that remember, that's Nate at Hall Yeah Comics, and that's Hall Yeah.
Yeah, it's right there. It's right there.
Right there.
Please come and see me.
He's got some good stuff there, and I find him quite amusing. Which
thank you, Matt.
Is always something, because if you cannot have fun with your hobbies, why are you doing them?
Exactly.
Anyway, please like, subscribe, comment down below on anything you liked in the video, anything you might like to see in the future. And go check out Nate at his channel. My name's Matt, and I like comics, and I hope you do too.
I like comics, Matt.